Drum nerd family, how's it all working out for you in the internet? Not that you reside in the internet, but it seems like we only ever meet in the internet, so I think I might as well be at least waffling and making no sense. So, before we get into the title and the content of this video, if you're new to this channel, consider joining the family. As an admin, I do my best to keep all the negative people out. You know, if I find anybody being rude to anybody else, they could be rude to me, but if they're going to be rude to anybody else, I'll try and see how I can make them unsubscribe or remove them from the channel. I'm learning though every day. So, but if you are a family member, welcome back to this nice kind of midday lunch installment. This nice tasty morsel of bass drum muffling. To do or not to do? That is the question Shakespeare was actually really asking. Now again, before we go in much deeper down this rabbit hole of bass drum muffling, what's your opinion? Because this is only my opinion. This is in fact in the sense of it has to be upheld. You know, the world won't explode if everybody disagrees with me. And I will certainly, if any video I ever make gives me kickback, this will probably be the one that gives me the most resistance and kickback. But what's your opinions? Do you think it should be muffled? Do you not think it should be muffled? Let's have a healthy, polite, respectable conversation and discourse in the comment section below. So my opinion, no, you shouldn't. I don't know why we seem to perceive the bass drum as a separate entity to the other drums. You know, the toms, the floor toms, the snare drums, the gong drums, which is just like a turned up side bass drum with no reso head. I don't know why we have that perception to treat it as a separate entity. You know, it is really just a juiced up floor tom. I mean like a heavily juiced up floor tom, mind you, given the size. But nonetheless, it's still a drum. It still gets attacked. It still gets used. It still gets the same treatment that all the other drums do. So why we treat it differently, I don't understand. You know, you don't cut holes, you don't cut portholes in other drums for micability or for whatever reasons you feel you want to do it, and you don't put pillows in other drums to try and get more of a nice sound out of it. I mean, if it's out there, please let me know and send me a link, because I'd be keen to see how that actually sounds, if not just a bit of plastic over top of a pillow, really is what that would sound like. But again, I'm a very puritanical, old-fashioned kind of guy, and to me, a bass drum should just be open and able to sing, because again, these drums are made to resonate. They are made to sing and express their tonality. And all you do when you stuff a pillow or a towel or an E-mat or any of that stuff, when you just shove it all in there because you go, it's a bit ringy and overtony, I don't really like that. So instead of investigating in how to tune it properly, you take an easy solution of just stuffing a pillow up it. You've killed it. You've suffocated it. You've got the perception then of a low end. You go, oh, well, it's really punchy now. Well, it's only punchy because you can hear your beater slam into that bit of plastic, especially if it's a non-coated head. If you've just got a clear head, that's going to be really, look at that, there. That's exactly what you're going to end up hearing, because you're going to really get that identifiable click sound of the attack, but because you've taken out almost the volume and the tonality and the resonance that can happen in that drum, there's very little that can go on with that, so you really hear that click, and then you hear a low thud come, but it's very muted, very damp, very uninspiring, very sad. It's almost like blowing a bubble, and it kind of like farts itself to the ground. It doesn't raise up and go somewhere, just bleh, it kind of drops out. And personally, I don't want anything to do with that, you know? Instead of saying like, oh, that's a bit of a ringy bass drum, invest in a drum dial. Invest in training your ears to tune the drum. And if it's still a bit ringy, then I guess the bass drum equivalent for a moon gel, because they won't really stay on so well, would be what they did back in the 30s, 40s, 20s, you know, the Baby Dodds, the Gene Krupas, the Buddy Riches, the Lionel Hamptons, those guys. You get like 1.5 inch, maybe 2 inch thick bit of felt strip, and you run that down the inside of the reso head, and however far across the bass drum you go, you're obviously going to get more fabric or less fabric in contact. And so that'll give a bit more of a dampening effect. That would be, I guess, the bass drum's equivalent for a moon gel. But again, and this is going to go into a bit more of a nerdy aspect, is then you've got those bits of felt that they're not invisibly thin. They're not. There's there's substance to them, so those will be pushing the head away from the bearing edge, which will in turn push the hoop away. And bass drum hoops are not triple flanged or die cast or single flanged hoops, they're wood hoops, and they're a little bit more responsive to things. And so then you're shifting that bass drum hoop up, and so now you've got an off-kilter bit, so you're kind of going even, bit of felt, back to even. So over a great amount of time, it could be questioned that you're warping that that hoop. And if you warp that hoop over more time, you could possibly and potentially be warping your drum. And then you've got an 800-pound, 1,000-pound bit of gear that's void. You know, so to me it's kind of like, no, don't even do that. In my opinion, you get a nice singing, resonating bass drum that lives and does what it needs to do. They're made for resonance. They're made for that. So why you then think I'll buy it and stuff a bunch of my bed sheets in it to make... I know, oh, I just bought this DW $1,500 bass drum. Oh, it's a bit ringy. They mustn't have made it proper. I know how I can make it sound better. I'll stick my flippin' springtime bedding into it. That's what they should be selling. God, they missed a trick there, didn't they? DW just only didn't get it right, and all those other drum companies got it wrong because they forgot to include my bedding in my bass drum. Come on, people, really. I'm sorry I'm getting excited here, but let's be really honest. You know, you don't stick pillows in other drums when they need to be kind of more controlled and tamed. They say stick it, try tuning it again, and then the engineer might say try sticking a bit of moon gel on there. And a combination maybe of one of those E-rings, and you'll find a nice balance. And I guess that's the felt equivalent. But again, my example of why I personally endorse this method of thought and this camp is John Bonham. You're looking at Whole Lotta Love, When the Levee Breaks, Black Dog, Fool in the Rain. And there's more. I should just say all of Zeppelin. But really, when you isolate those tracks, and I'll put them in the link below, I'll put, I found a video on YouTube that I don't own, but hopefully they don't mind me sharing it, an isolated drum track of the recording of Fool in the Rain, sorry. So you'll hear the bass drum there. It's delicious sounding. That's, in my opinion, that's what a bass drum should sound like. And then get some context by just listening to Zeppelin. And this is a man who used a 26x14 bass drum. We're talking marching band bass drums. Like that's what you see in those parades, right? We're not talking the standard modern cool version of like a 20 or a 22x18 or a 22x16. When you look at that size of a drum that he used, you're thinking, how the hell can that be anything other than like a flabby hit? You know, but he got, and I know this is Bonham, but again, he got incredible articulation, great finesse work, especially in Black Dog. You can hear those like rolling triplets on his foot. The man could work that bit of kit, and it was a lot of drum to work, and he had that under wraps. And I can't hear any muffling in any of those recordings. I certainly couldn't hear it live, and I also couldn't see any portholes in his bass drum at any of those shows that I've watched on the old internet there. So my point is, not only did he use zero muffling in terms of a pillow or any of that kind of stuff, and he also didn't use a porthole, he was using a very, very huge bass drum, which if ever there was a drum that would need some kind of taming, would be that kind of a drum. And so for those reasons alone, I've really gone on a bit of a tangent, but again, this is what you expect. This is the Drum Nerd channel, and these are the rabbit holes we go down. You don't need to choke the life out of the drum. They're there to sing. If you need to make it work better, get better at tuning it yourself. Investigate in how to tune. Get the drum dial. Look at how things can be done, but don't just stifle its sound and its voice by stuffing pillows and blankets and God knows what in it. You don't do it to other drums, so I don't really think you should be using that as a get out of jail free card for your bass drum. So, that's my 2.5 cents on the matter. It is what it is. I will leave you with a quote. There is nothing impossible to him who will try. Alexander the Great said that, and if you're not familiar with him, certainly investigate who that man is. Not at all remotely related to drums, but a very, very powerful and inspirational guy, at least to me and in my life. So look him up, check it out. So there you go. Keep your stick on the ice and stay safe.